what is Trump's argument to say to the Supreme Court, can we just put this thing on pause? We get heated like that. Why would they rule that way?
Well, it's one of the things that this is a global implications in terms of the cases that are in front of the Supreme Court. He's saying, look, if you take my immunity challenge, this could basically wipe out everything else. So we need to stop and see what's going to happen with the immunity charge in terms of my claim that I have immunity before we proceed with anything else. It's not necessarily abnormal to hear, but here's the thing that I think we should pay attention to. It tells you what he's most concerned about. The jury in D.C., he's worried about that trial moving forward because now he's got some things that may appear to be an out with respect to a potential disqualification in Fulton County. We already know that in Mar-a-Lago, Eileen Cannon is sort of in his back pocket. So D.C. is the biggest concern that he has, and this is the way that he's going to try to slow it down. It's not a surprising legal maneuver to see, but I don't know if it's going to be successful.
But does it feel legal or political, Susan? Because the argument Trump's lawyers are making is that it would disrupt his ability to campaign.
Well, that's exactly right. Remember, the overall argument here is that Donald Trump essentially is above the law, that our presidents are not subject to any kind of prosecution, even after they're no longer in office. It's such a sweeping assertion of presidential immunity. And it's a very important case for that reason, in some ways more important than the case that was heard last week on the 14th Amendment and whether Trump can be back on the ballot in Colorado and Maine, the two states that have struck him off the ballot, in the sense that this is setting a very potentially big precedent for that would apply to all presidents and describe the reach of presidential powers. Look, we know Donald Trump's technique here because it's been his technique as a businessman. It's been his technique as a politician. Delay, delay, delay. Use the courts as an instrument and an arm and a part of his political playbook.
Luke, if you were running for president or Congress or anything, and you were facing serious charges, legal charges, criminal and civil, wouldn't one want to clear their name for voters rather than delay, delay, delay? How do the president's allies, how do voters look at this as he's saying, I would rather delay this than have my name cleared before the American people?
Right. Well, I mean, President Trump and his legal team, former President Trump and his legal team, believe the best way for him to get out of these charges, at least the federal ones, is to take the reins again of the Justice Department and then order them to drop the cases. And so the message that sends to me, and I think to anybody who looks at this with an objective eye, is that he's actually very concerned about the outcome of these cases, that he doesn't think that he would necessarily prevail at trial, that he thinks these juries, once they hear the evidence, might in fact convict him. So, but look, trying to get that argument out to Trump's voters, to Republican voters, that's not going to be a winning argument to most of them. They have become convinced, because of what he tells them, that he is being railroaded. And so he will continue to tell them that, and they'll continue to believe it despite whatever evidence comes out at trial.
New topic. Charles, the judge down in Georgia, the Georgia election case, will hold a hearing into the relationship between Fani Willis and the prosecutor on her team who she may have had a personal relationship with. The judge has suggested that she might need to be disqualified from the case. What would that mean if it happens?
Well, it depends on who's put in her place. That new prosecutor could move forward with respect to the investigation.
Who picks the prosecutor?
That's going to be a matter of the judge in that case. Yeah, the judge would be able to pick the prosecutor. Or if Fani Willis ultimately said up front, I'm going to step down, she would then have the authority to put someone in her place. But if he disqualifies her, then he's going to be able to decide who that prosecutor is. She may have input or may be able to make suggestions, but ultimately he's going to make that decision. This is a very big issue because for a very long time, this was the case that Donald Trump had to be most concerned about, and here's why. You become president, you get a new AG, Mar-a-Lago goes away, D.C. goes away. But you can't do anything about Georgia. He couldn't do anything about Georgia. And now we're in a situation where it could be that there's a new prosecutor who's appointed and they decide, I don't want to go forward. I don't think that's likely, but it is possible. And I think that that's one of the things that people have to understand. I'm not trying to sound any alarms here, but what I am saying is that when you switch prosecutors, and Fani Willis is the person who was in charge of the investigation, in charge of the prosecution thus far, and now you have a new special prosecutor who's appointed to this case, you don't know what they're going to do.
So it wouldn't just be someone on her team, not the person who she's had this personal, it wouldn't just be somebody who already was well-versed. It would be a new person, and so it would likely take potentially months for them to get up to speed?
That depends. If she steps down, she would likely be able to appoint someone. But if she's removed, then with the scenario you just described is exactly what could happen.
Susan, Donald Trump reportedly plans to be in that Georgia courtroom on Thursday. This thing is likely to become a circus. How much is this about the court of public opinion? And in the court of public opinion, how bad is this for Fani Willis?
Circus. That's the word that we always circle back to, isn't it, Steph? It's really remarkable that this is what we're doing and what would otherwise be the heat of a primary contest. And Donald Trump is the favorite for the Republican nomination, but he hasn't yet finalized it. And instead, he's going from courtroom to courtroom, courthouse steps, weighing in and, seeking again and again and again, always looking to create a distraction, always looking to have the other person be at issue, not his own conduct, not the question of what he himself did or what he's putting the country through right now. I am struck by that. At a moment in time, you raise the issue of aid for Ukraine. There's the war in the Middle East. And here we are talking about, essentially a circus once again. And it seems to follow Donald Trump wherever he goes in politics. It's quite something that this is what the American public is talking about and being forced to consider is which of his court cases is Donald Trump going to show up to this week, right?
Well, it sounds like he's going to be excited to head to Georgia. Luke, new topic. Donald Trump has also been pushing GOP senators to drop the foreign aid bill, which would help Ukraine. Why does this make sense? With the exception of serving Vladimir Putin, someone who Donald Trump is a great big fan of, why would this work, especially for the GOP? Because it's certainly not about protecting our borders versus Ukraine. They're all interconnected. And Donald Trump is trying to create a narrative making that not the case.
Right. And he has convinced a majority of Senate Republicans to go along with him. Now, there's still about 17 or 18 Senate Republicans who are willing to stand with Ukraine, stand with Israel, stand with Taiwan, and send American aid to help those countries. But you're right. Donald Trump has now wide sway over the vast majority of Republicans. So this may well get out of the Senate. There may well be aid on the way to Ukraine, but it's going to run into even more trouble in the House. And Donald Trump has even more influence in the House. There's many more Republicans who line up with him. And we'll see if there's a small number of Republicans in the House who are willing to partner with Democrats to somehow pass this through both chambers. And I was just talking with Abigail Spanberger a couple hours ago, who had just been on a bipartisan trip to Ukraine and met with Zelensky. And a couple of the House Republicans had assured Zelensky in person that they would pass this through the House by whatever means they could, even if they have to go around their own speaker. So there are still some Republicans left fighting for Ukraine, but they're fewer and fewer.
But how much harder is that getting? Not just Republicans fighting for Ukraine. Look at the Mayorkas vote last week. What was there? 3 Republicans who voted not to impeach him, and already one of them, we just learned over the weekend, is facing a primary challenger. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, look, and if right, only 3 Republicans are willing to stand up against the Mayorkas impeachment. There's probably going to be 3 again tomorrow night when this comes up again. Steve Scalise is battling cancer, is going to come back to cast the winning vote for the Republicans. And they're rushing this vote because they know that a Democrat could win in New York and give the Democrats one more vote. So they're going full speed ahead to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. They acknowledge they don't have evidence of high crimes or misdemeanors, and this is going nowhere in the Senate. So this is what the Republican House is up to right now. They're doing this instead of passing a border bill, instead of passing aid to Ukraine. But these are the priorities now of the House Republicans.
Now that he has killed the latest immigration bill, what does Donald Trump actually want to do at the border? Well, if he wins in November, Axios is reporting he would push the National Guard, the FBI, and local law enforcement into a campaign of mass deportations reaching into the millions. Joining me now to discuss this and more, Juanita Tolliver is here, MSNBC political analyst and host of the What a Day podcast, and Stuart Stevens joins us, a veteran of the Mitt Romney and George W. Bush presidential campaigns. He is now with the Lincoln Project. His new book, The Conspiracy to End America, 5 Ways My Old Party is Driving Our Democracy to Autocracy, is out now. It is a horror movie in the making, and we're living it. Stuart, what exactly is Donald Trump doing here? It would be devastating. Yes, it's inhumane, but it would be devastating to our economy, especially if you think about our labor shortage. People across the country agree we have an illegal immigration problem. But is what Trump's offering what people are looking for?
Well, if there's a silver lining here, it's the last time Donald Trump said all this stuff. He did a terrible job compared to the Obama administration as far as deporting people. He was attacked in the primary by DeSantis about this. Obama deported, millions more than Donald Trump did. So there's always this question of, sort of where does cruelty meet incompetence, or cruelty get blunted by incompetence? But there's just this complete mean-spiritedness about this. I mean, let's don't forget, like when I joined the Republican Party in 1980, when Bush ran against Reagan in the primary, they had a debate in Texas. You should go look at it. It's on YouTube, which they got in the argument over who was more liberal on immigration. And Ronald Reagan signed a bill that allowed everyone in the country before 1983 to be legal. And that used to be where the Republican Party was. And you can say everything you want about legal versus illegal, but there's really just a sort of anti-American, he talks about the blood of the country or something being, this is something that is not about the border. It's not about immigration. It's about some sort of mean-spirited white nationalist thread that runs through Donald Trump.
It's mean, and to Stuart's point, Juanita, it's unsuccessful. Donald Trump talked a really big game about the border when he was in office, and he didn't do very well. Obama was tougher on the border than Trump was. What does the Biden administration need to do to start winning this narrative? Because right now, immigration is a big vulnerability for them.
I think the key here is humanity. And I think when, as Stuart pointed out, you have a white supremacist policy idea thrown out by a candidate who absolutely wants to be an authoritarian dictator, like that is do the inverse and complete opposite of that. And what we've seen from the polling is that the more humane policies are what appeal across the spectrum. I mean, take independents, for example. Majority of them are anti the policies we're seeing out of Texas and Florida, where those governors are shipping migrants across the country. They see that as inhumane. They see that as harmful. But what they do support is better asylum processes that streamline everything and make it more efficient and make it faster and make it more humane. So this kind of approach where Trump is proposing the mass just detainment of individuals, which sounds off alarm bells in my mind, knowing how that process has appeared repeatedly throughout history, throughout the world, how harmful that is just going to create an authoritarian hellscape that is going to inflict trauma and harm as far and wide as he possibly could.
Stuart, House Republicans are going to try again tomorrow to impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas. In theory, Mike Johnson would not be bringing this to a vote unless he had the votes. And it's kind of do or die tomorrow, seeing that it's the special election in New York and Democrats could pick up a seat. What do you think we're in for?
What kills me is, the Republican Party at one time actually had a certain purchase on competence. And this is just the most sort of childish display of sort of using the House Representatives for these spiteful temper tantrums. This isn't going to do anything. I mean, if they do pass this, it's not going to go anywhere. And they admit it's not high crimes or misdemeanors. So it's just kind of your mama, too. You know, you impeach President Trump, so we're going to find somebody in the Biden administration to impeach. You know, it's right up there with Hunter Biden's laptop. This is a non-governing party. And sometimes that's amusing and sometimes it's sad. But when you come to stuff like funding for Ukraine and the border, it's tragic. And there's just absolutely nothing you can say to make these people act like serious adults.
Okay, well, then my next question can be categorized as amusing, sad, puzzling, but like for real, I want the answer. Vladimir Putin is the least popular world leader. Taylor Swift is the most popular performer in the world. We know that Donald Trump and many Republicans are cozying up to Vladimir Putin while they're waging war against Taylor Swift. Juanita, and I am being dead serious. Why would they do this? Like, what is the logic?
I mean, it's all rooted in anti-American thoughts and feelings and sentiments, right? Like, that's the only reason why you would cozy up with a dictator like Putin, right? Like, there's no explanation for it. What I do find the most harmful about this is that they're doing it to follow Trump's lead, right? Like, that is why they will absolutely not let up on Mayorkas, for example. That is why they will continue with this harmful weaponization of government push that we're seeing across Congress that does not yield anything of substance to come through, including making sure that legislation that had been negotiated for months and months related to the border, related to foreign aid, fall apart because Donald Trump told them to. And so I kind of look at the Republican Party like, okay, whatever happens next, whatever implosions at the multiple levels within your party happens next, you all deserve it. Because you are clearing the way for somebody like Trump. You are continuously cowering to him. And so whatever happens to you, so be it.